Hello, Wildcats. Welcome to the Dean's List. I'm your host, your Dean of Students, and your very best friend, Mr. Walters. November is Native American Heritage Month, a time to honor the history and continuing culture of Native Americans, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians. I'd like to start by reading part of the introduction of this book that's in our Ponderosa Library. It's called Notable Native People, 50 Indigenous Leaders, Dreamers, and Changemakers from Past and Present. It's by Adrienne Keene. She's a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, a scholar, a writer, and a podcaster. I picked this introduction because it helped me better understand the history of Indigenous people, as well as some of the experiences that Native Americans have. Let's read. The United States, as we know it, has not always existed. There is a deep and rich legacy of people inhabiting these lands long before the first European colonists arrived and altered the course of history. The lands in what is currently known as the United States encompasses the homelands of 574 federally recognized American Indian tribal nations, as well as hundreds more state-recognized and non-recognized tribal nations. In addition, through later acts of land seizing, and in the case of the Hawaiian Kingdom, a legal overthrow, our extended indigenous community also includes Kanana Maoli and Alaska Native people. These three groups encompass vast diversity, innumerable cultural groups, nations, languages, histories, experience, struggles, and joys. Indigenous people are the first people of the lands around the world. To be indigenous is to be of a place, to have creation stories of how your people emerged from the land, and to be connected to a community from that place. As the first people of their respective lands, American Indian people, Alaska Native people, and Kanaka Maoli have expertly stewarded and cared for the land, built vast cities and societies, utilized democratic governance, and carried and shaped cultural practices and traditions for centuries. But because of the destructive legacy of settler colonialism, most Americans know very little about Native people beyond the stereotypes of Hollywood Indians, igloos, or Hawaiian grass skirts. But our reality is much different. We have, and have always had, leaders across all sectors, from science, art, and activism to education, fashion, politics, and beyond. I am a Native person who was raised far away from her Cherokee community, surrounded by non-natives and educated in predominantly white schools. Growing up, the lesson I learned in school about Indigenous people was that we were people who existed only in the historic past, and that we and our cultures were extinct and had no connection to the present day. I never learned about any Native people other than historic male leaders like Sitting Bull and Geronimo, and I was surrounded by images in popular culture of harmful stereotypes. But this narrative of Native people couldn't be more wrong. We are not extinct, and there are so many important Native people of the past and today whose stories and lives have resonance, power, and are worth learning about. Now, as a scholar who studies, writes, and teaches about the importance of representation, I know the power of sharing stories that push beyond stereotypes and move Indigenous people from the historic past into the modern present and the future. A common refrain about Indigenous representation is, "We are still here," which is a powerful reminder that, in spite of everything, we haven't been erased. I hope this book and the stories of these incredible individuals can help us see that not only are we still here, we have always been here and always will be. If you'd like to learn more about the history of Indigenous people, you can check out this book at the Ponderosa Library. It's called We Are Still Here, Native American Truths Everyone Should Know. It's by Traci, Sorell, and illustrated by Frane, Lessac. In this book, you'll learn how Native nations have faced challenges, fought for rights, and persevered. You'll learn truths about Native Americans that everyone should know. In fact, there's a lot in this book that I didn't know when I was in school. So, what are you learning about during Native American Heritage Month? I'd love to hear about it, maybe even visit your class for a read aloud. Thanks again for joining me today on the Dean's List. I've been your host, your Dean of Students, and your very best friend, Mr. Walters. And I'll see you next time on the Dean's List.